Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my YouTube channel where I'm making more videos like I kind of said I would. So let's talk about Starfield. I've been playing it for about 10 hours and I've got many things to say. Some good, some bad. Overall, I'm just gonna say flat out, this is not like a life-changing experience of a video game as a lot of people were expecting. This is very much a Bethesda game through and through. I will say though, that unlike typical Bethesda games, I haven't really run into many noticeable bugs or glitches. There's been a couple instances of like an enemy's head poking through a door or a wall or something like that, but so far, you know, no monsters or spacers, which are the raiders in this game, have like fallen out of the sky randomly, like unless I was on like the moon and it was low gravity and they were falling out of the sky because I just blew them up or something. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, so I think first of all, I just want to say that this game runs pretty well, and I am running a 4090 with like 32 gigs of RAM, so it should run well. If it didn't on my setup, I would be very concerned for everybody else. That's for sure. But yeah, no, it's running better than a typical Bethesda game usually does. Like I'm getting flashbacks to trying to go through Boston in Fallout 4. Ooh, that could see a lot of slowdown. So far, it's been pretty good. There have been a couple little instances where the frame rate dipped a bit, but it's like almost not even noticeable. So I am happy to say that for me at least, it's been a relatively good performing and glitch-free experience so far, aside from like some very minor things that I kind of expect with pretty much every game, no matter what. So yeah, that's a really good part about this game so far. Now let's talk a little bit about the tutorial and the gameplay loop and how the narrative is created and presented in this game. I do have some issues with it. Now this isn't game breaking at all. This isn't fully ruining my experience or anything, but there are a lot of things that I've become accustomed to with Bethesda games in regards to writing that are still present in this one. And it's not even to say the writing is bad, it's just that they seem to have a particular affinity with trying to make your character like the most important person in the history of anything. And they've done that very quickly in this game, in the tutorial specifically. So I won't be spoiling the main plot of the game or anything. Everything I'm gonna talk about is like maybe the first half hour of the game in like main story wise. So you start out in a mine, it's like your second day on the job, and they're like, okay, go dig up this thing, and they're being really shifty about it, and you're like, I'm gonna go do that. I want to go get my 7 space dollars an hour and get this weird rock metal thing. And then you pass out, you see flashing lights, you know, general sci-fi stuff, and you wake up, and all of a sudden, they're shipping you off to this secret constellation organization that's trying to unravel the mysteries of the universe, and you're one of only 2 people in the entire universe who have this mystical power that they're trying to uncover or whatever, and you just become like, you know, the general sci-fi protagonist, and they really try to railroad you into being a part of Constellation. And they're like, okay, you gotta be part of this exploration guild, and we gotta go discover everything as a truck goes by, and it's really loud. God damn it, I hate living downtown. This is the absolute worst. Yes, just let off all your mufflers and stuff too. That's the best thing to do at a time like this. I love it. So yeah, within the span of like 10 to 15 minutes, they really end up trying to make you this uber important protagonist, and that irks me because this is a game about like space exploration and, you know, finding the mysteries of the universe and stuff. And I feel like when they make you that important, it kind of takes like a little bit of that discovery away, because now you just feel obligated to go on with the main story. And they do a really poor job of incentivizing you to go out and explore in the world right away. They very much like set you up with a companion right away, who's like, hey, you need to go here, and then you go there, and then they say, okay, you need to go to this place next, so you go there, and you just keep doing stuff. And it really doesn't feel like they want you to go out and explore right away in the game. Part of that is to teach you stuff in the tutorial, but I don't feel like I have the onus on myself to go out and explore and discover things. So I started thinking and comparing this game to like Fallout New Vegas, I think is a really good example. Obviously not made by Bethesda, by Obsidian instead, but I really like the way that they handled the main character in that game, where you are not like the main protagonist that has this special power that nobody has, you know. You're just a guy who got shot in the head, and you have like a reason to go and find the guy that shot you in the head, but you could just go and do whatever you want too. You don't have to do it, but they give you like a reason to do the main story, but you're never at any point like tied to another character that wants you to go there. There's multiple companions at the start of this game that like straight up say, hey, I'm gonna stick around with you this entire time until we do this. And that just kind of irks me, because it makes me feel like if I'm not doing the main story, then I'm letting down this character. And if this is a game that's like about exploration and finding new things and new discoveries, it really feels like they want you on this like roller coaster ride in the main story to start with, at least. And as I'm playing more of the game, I think I'm discovering why that is. So I feel like this game has a lot of ups and downs depending on what type of gameplay you're doing at that point. So if you're on the main story, you go to a lot of locations that are obviously very handcrafted and designed to be like, you know, your typical Bethesda dungeons that are very well made, and they have like a little environmental story to them as you go through them, and they're really good. And then when you go exploring on another planet, like I went to the moon, or I went to a different like random planet that I found, started exploring around there, and you figure out exactly why they kind of want you to be on like the main story or the side quests that have all the handcrafted content, because when you go to these planets, it very quickly devolves into something similar to, and I'm gonna compare it to No Man's Sky, because they took a lot of inspiration from it. People are probably gonna get mad at me comparing this game to No Man's Sky, but like there is obvious stuff that they've taken from it and applied here. And so like the biggest thing in regards to that is landing on a planet and taking out your scanner and seeing a bunch of little points of interest around you and going and discovering them and scanning them. Some of them might be like an abandoned research facility. There's a lot of those. Or there might be like some abandoned little alien artifact, or like a natural formation or wonder or something like that. And you just go to these, and they either have some enemy spacers around them. There's a lot of spacers in this game. Spacers are like raiders, but, you know, in space. So you fight them because the majority of planets do not have like a breathable atmosphere, so they don't have wildlife or a lot of aliens on them. Or you just go to this like location that has nothing in it. Occasionally you'll go to a location that's not hostile, and you'll find like an NPC that's a trader, or maybe somebody needs help getting their ship repaired. There is differences there, but the vast majority of what you do starts to feel pretty samey pretty quickly. And that's not to say that that's bad. I do enjoy doing like exploration and going to different planets and just seeing what's there. Even if it doesn't feel totally unique and handcrafted, there is stuff to be enjoyed in that. But I really feel like they recognize that this gameplay loop gets old, so they really want you involved in like the main content of the game, because they feel like that's the best showcase of it. And because of that, I feel like the writing suffers. You know, it's very much a case of them kind of showing all their cards very early. Within 10 minutes, you have your own spaceship, you're being called captain, you go to like the capital of the United Colonies, and then 2 missions later, you go to the capital of the Freestar Collective. They're trying to like show you all of the best things at once, and then once you've seen all that, you eventually start going out and doing your own thing, and you're like, oh, none of this is as impressive as all the stuff you just showed me. So like spacing that stuff out and having a bit more pacing would have been really appreciated, and maybe like taking advantage of this procedural generation in some way that you've created to like bring everything together in a nice tight bow and make it feel less separated. But that being said, aside from narrative and pacing issues, I don't think that any of the gameplay is inherently bad. There is some really fun stuff and good stuff in there. I would say that most of it is serviceable. I've never described the gameplay in a Bethesda game as anything more than serviceable, to be entirely honest. They work and they enhance the immersive experience, but things like the gunplay is gonna feel very similar to Fallout. I would say that it actually feels a bit less weighty than Fallout does, and I would never describe Fallout as a game with like weighty, hefty gunplay that feels great when you're doing it. But there's something about the weapons in this game. They do not feel like they've got any heft. They feel very spongy, like you shoot an enemy with an automatic weapon a billion times and they have like one little stumble animation, and then you take out one health bar, but they've got another health bar that pops up. It feels very bullet spongy. The pistols and the semi-automatic weapons feel a little bit better, but it's still kind of a problem. And again, it's not so bad, it's serviceable, but it really feels like it could have been punched up a little bit more. There's a decent amount of weapon variety, and I'm still finding plenty of them as I'm playing the game. I'm only about 10 hours in right now, so this is like initial impressions of the combat, so who knows how it's gonna change up or end up by the time I'm like 60 to 100 hours into the game or something like that. But right now, it's good. There's a variety of weapons, but I wouldn't say there's anything that's really standing out to me. They brought back the legendary weapon system that we saw in Fallout, where like you can find a weapon that has some legendary traits that are essentially the enchantments from like Skyrim and Oblivion and that sort of thing. Like in this engine, they obviously have specific things that they can easily apply to items, like specific traits, like making someone like run away from you, like that's a spell in Elder Scrolls, and that's like an effect in Fallout, and making certain weapons reduce damage from certain enemy types or deal more damage. Like that's all familiar stuff, and you're seeing it again in this game. Whether or not it fully makes sense, it doesn't really matter. So you see a lot of familiar traits and item types that you've seen before. Obviously, one of the biggest things in this game is the space combat, space flight, and space exploration, and it is a lot more limited than I think a lot of people were expecting. It's not more limited than what I was expecting. This is exactly what I thought it was going to be. Kind of a, not quite bare bones, but a pretty simple and enjoyable kind of arcade experience in regards to space travel and combat. The combat is very much like managing your shields and things. You can do that very easily. You have different like weapon types very similar to ground combat. There's like laser weapons and ballistic weapons. Ballistics do more damage when an enemy doesn't have shields, and laser weapons take down shields faster, that sort of thing. Somebody just broke a bunch of bottles outside. I don't know what that was about. And it's all serviceable. It is very instance-based. There isn't any mechanic that lets you like fly from one end of the universe to the other. You know, if you want to go to another planet, you do have to do like a travel loading screen, that sort of thing. It's all very quick, which is good. It's not like it takes a lot of effort to get from one place to another. Even things like docking with other ships or space stations, I really appreciate that they made it as simple as just holding down a button for a second, because honestly, in a lot of like space sims, like Elite Dangerous, getting the handle of all the docking and stuff kind of like takes up an unnecessary amount of time, and I feel like it's a little bit alienating to the more casual audience. So I kind of appreciate the simplicity of just letting me get from point A to point B rather quickly. That being said, you're not going to be going on like a space trucker journey. It's going to be more like go to your map and choose where you want to go, do a little loading screen, and then pop up in an area around there, and maybe you'll like see some enemies there, or there will be a trader, or you're going to a star station, that sort of thing. And then if you scan around, you can find like other points of interest in space, very similar to how you do it when you're on like a planet. And again, that's fine, you know, it's pretty much you're just loading up a bunch of procedurally generated little areas and maps wherever you go. Like if you land on a planet, you get like a, I don't know, like a couple kilometer wide area that you can run around in that has some points of interest on it. But if you want to go outside of that, you have to like go back up in your ship and land somewhere else, and then it makes a different one, that sort of thing. People were, again, very mad about that you couldn't just run around the entire planet. I mean, I never expected that, personally, because I know that the creation engine could definitely not handle an entire planet. And that causes issues when you have that amount of generation, like, in one place in a game. Look at a game like No Man's Sky that still has performance problems to this day, so I'm totally fine with it. They give you a bunch of stuff when you land there, and then if you want to go somewhere else, it's as easy as just popping back up for a second and going back down to the planet. I would say that so far, doing a few of the side quests and just doing some general exploration to find some unique points of interest has probably been the most entertaining part of the game so far. I was really big into like outpost creation and building stuff in Fallout, so I'm probably going to get more into that pretty soon. I haven't done that or the like ship modifications and customizing yet, so that'll be like in a future impressions video as I get more into the game. But so far, I would say my impressions are good. I wouldn't say this is like a life-changing video game or an industry-changing title. This is just a game that took all these awesome pieces from other games and put them together and made a serviceable game that has like a bunch of stuff that you can do. It kind of feels like one man's baby. Like Todd obviously really wanted to make this game and felt like the technology could support it. So they made it to the best of their capabilities, but it's not necessarily like the best version of what it originally could have been in his head. I really do feel like a lot of parts of this game are enjoyable, but shallow, and I think that that shallowness is going to become a lot more noticeable the further into the game I get. But that being said, that's not different to any other game from Bethesda that I've played, and I still really enjoy those. I think that the longevity of this game is very much going to come down to the modding support and modding community. I feel like there is a lot of stuff that they can do with this universe and with the different planets, adding in locations, new procedural generation probably, items, and like I can't even imagine the stuff that's going to come out in regards to mods. And I feel like if you're on the fence about a game like this, it's probably worth waiting like 4 years, because at that point I feel like the modding community will have like completely remade everything in this game to make it a lot deeper than it currently is. You know, they're gonna take a shovel, dive down to the bottom of the swimming pool and just keep digging. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'll probably make another couple first impression videos of the game as I get further into it. I don't know when those will be or how much time I'm gonna have to play, but that's my plan. If you enjoyed my insane ramblings about Starfield, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. I do plan on making videos more often again, so I would really appreciate that. And I still haven't remembered how people end videos, so I'm just gonna, you know, go see how I can enable ads again, because I didn't see that option last time I uploaded a video. I don't know how any of this works now. I'm kind of out of the loop. Goodbye.